Okay, friends, Monday was not a particularly heavy card, so welcome to Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball, and today we're going to deal with Monday's recap and Tuesday's look ahead, all rolled into one delicious burrito of a show, because coming up a little bit later on today, I'll be joined by my buddy Adam King. That'll be on episode 2. It's a 2 for Tuesday, and we'll be going through some of the most interesting names. That'll be the second half. So we're not going to do a look ahead as its own show again today, trying to reserve those types of episodes for when you have a really, really intense card of games. I think it's only like an 8-game Tuesday, something like that. Yeah, it's 8. Confirmation. It's 8. I'm Dan Besbris at Dan Besbris over on social media. I hope you guys will find me over there. It's DANBESBRIS. And this is an Old Man Squad Network presentation. You can follow that at Old Man Squad on Twitter or Old Man Squad Fantasy over on Instagram. The Monday recap will take us a little bit of time on today's show. It's a 5-gamer, but there were some things, and we had some news this morning to throw in there as well. But before we get into all of that, you guys know we got to give a shout to our guys over at Bet Online. Oh, I see. This is... My computer has decided it doesn't want to work like it normally does today. BetOnline is, as he's pulling up the script again, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. BetOnline has the earliest odds. They've got in-game live betting. They've got a way for you to watch the games as they're happening so you can see your action in real time with the largest selection of odds on everything from football to basketball, to college hoops, NHL, UFC, and MMA. Head to Bet Online today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. Bet Online. The game starts here. Monday. There's Monday. Let's go through it game by game, and we don't have to rush, so that's nice because there's only 5 of them. Sacramento got blown out in San Antonio. This kind of an unexpected twist for the Kings, who were working on a pretty good road trip. I know that they're, I think, maybe getting a little bit worn out with the hard-fought overtime win over the Suns, and then they just kind of ran out of gas in the second half of this back-to-back in San Antonio. DeMar DeRozan was still very good. Domantas Sabonis was still pretty good in this one. I only say pretty good because he's been better than this lately. De'Aaron Fox continues to be a little bit of a letdown so far, and we kind of knew that of all the guys on this Kings team, he was the one, and Keegan Murray, the other one, were the ones where you're like, all right, they're going to do less with DeMar DeRozan in town. We figured DeMar would do less. That, interestingly, has been, he's doing almost the same thing he did in Chicago, and he's doing it more efficiently with more steals right now. But indeed, De'Aaron Fox has fallen off a bit. He's number 46. Not that it's been bad or anything, but he hasn't kept up the 2 steals a game number, and his free throws at 88%. So it actually, believe it or not, could be a little bit worse than that. And yeah, turnovers are a big thing, and the Kings are doing fine so far. They're not blowing teams out of the water or anything. But this was one of the reasons that I think we shied off of Fox a tad, unless you were in that specific type of build. The main thing to watch with the Kings is what do they do with no Malik Monk? Those around the team seem to believe that Monk is out for a little stretch of time. I think news dropped late yesterday that it was going to be at least 2 weeks, but that was kind of what folks that were following the Kings were saying anyway. And the initial thought there is that Kevin Huerter is the guy that's probably going to pick up the pieces, but he was terrible, and Keon Ellis was also not good in this game. Trey Lyles ended up getting some bonus run just because. I think you can stick with Huerter. When there's only 2 shooting guards fighting for those minutes, it's very different than when it's 3. And Kevin was coming off a really nice game in Phoenix. It just seems like of the guys who may have lost their legs after the overtime, Huerter seems to be sort of culprit number 1 on that. So I think I would stick with Huerter, and you'll see his name on the burger board later on today. So, but again, this is just a Malik Monk footnote. Victor Wembanyama, turns out he's fine, guys. Wemby's good at basketball. He's up to number 2 now. He passed Anthony Davis, mostly because AD left that last ball game early after getting jabbed in the eye. But either way, Victor is now number 2. No one's anywhere near Nikola Jokic, but 34 and 14, a steal, 3 blocks, 6 assists, 6 3-pointers for Wemby. Guys, I think he's okay. Chris Paul had another double-double. That's cool. He got off to a slow start, then went on a sort of like a mini heater. Now he's settled at number 67. You know me. I love me my old dudes here. But more importantly, forget the guys that everybody's rostered. Devin Vassell slowly ramping up. 21 minutes in this one. He was around 21 in his first game back. That'll probably be 22, 23, 24, something like that by the next ball game. But who is the player that gets displaced? Is it going to be Julian Champagny or is it going to be Stefan Castle? Because Castle played the second most minutes on the team behind only Wemby. He had 10 points, 4 boards, 6 assists, a steal, a block, and a couple of three-pointers. That's a pretty damn good game for Castle. And he's working on a few pretty good games in a row. He's also not particularly heavily rostered, it's worth noting. Only 16% in Yahoo leagues. So what do we make of this? I mean, you know, it seems like he's going to be an okay steals guy, although it's not that easy to tell. I wouldn't put a whole lot of stock in him getting a block most ball games, but you saw a handful of assists. That's a good sign. He can score a bit. I think we're going to see a difficult field goal percent, so that's going to hold him down in traditional 9-category rankings. But I'm sort of, and I know, I mean, Jeremy Sohan's going to come back in 5 and some odd weeks, and then we probably don't have to worry about this all that much. But that's still a long time. And so the question becomes, can we get like 14, 15 points out of Castle and 4 assists and 3 rebounds and a little over a steal and, you know, a 3-pointer or 1.5 or something like that without him destroying the percentages all that much? Honest to goodness, the answer is I don't know. But I picked him up in one spot where I had someone to cut, which now is Jose Alvarado, but we'll get to him in a minute. But if you got a guy that you're just casting off into the ocean, Castle's an interesting name to pick up and just kind of see how this thing develops. I think Julian Champagny can go. I've always said Keldon Johnson can go, and that's kind of where I sit with the Spurs. The Nets beat the zombie Pelicans. Brooklyn's just going to play a close ball game with everybody. This time they kind of played down a little bit. Got a nice game out of Ben Simmons in a kind of rare twist. You're not going down that path. At least you're not doing it with me. Or I'm not going down it with you. Dennis Schroeder, slower ball game. I think we all kind of knew that at some point. Not that the luster's going to come off, but it is a little bit. He's still ranked very highly, so that's good. But we're going to see it come down a little over the course of the season. Cam Thomas at a weird 7-rebound game, but, you know, he sort of is what he is at this point. He's number 95 on big scoring and not a whole lot else. And sure enough, he's missed a couple of free throws, so that's come down from 95%, and this is always what we expected. Cam Johnson's rolling along. Noah Clowney had a good game off the bench, but you're not doing anything with that. And then Nick Claxton is now playing full starters minutes, so he's settled in. There's no longer a buy low opportunity on Claxton. Zaire Williams got the start at power forward with no Dorian Finney-Smith in this ball game, and wasn't bad, honestly, but I'm not going out of my way to pick up Zaire Williams. Just sort of a low-end fill-in type of guy to put in the back of your brain should the opportunity ever arise again. The Pelicans are a dumpster fire right now. They lost Jose Alvarado this morning. We knew he left the ball game with an injury, tried to play through it, but now they've diagnosed him with a hamstring strain that's going to sideline him for a month and a half, ladies and gentlemen. So Alvarado now joins, what's the running tally? Because let's see, Zion's out for like a month. CJ McCollum is out a couple more weeks. DeJounte's out a couple more weeks. Herb Jones is out a couple more weeks. Jordan Hawkins is out a couple of weeks. The Pelicans have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rotation players out. Long-term, medium-term, I guess, at the same time. But we're more interested in what it's left behind. And it's left behind a mishmash of goobers, because Trey Murphy just came back, or he would have been on that list also. Trey Murphy is a start. He played 25.5 minutes in his first game back. The rust he'll shake it off over the next game or two, but 25, 26 minutes is more than enough for the guy who's going to be taking the second most shots on the team behind Brandon Ingram, who's also a start. Brandon Boston Jr. I don't know where I added another Brandon Boston. Brandon Boston III, I don't know if he's born yet. Brandon Boston Jr. had 7 and 7 with 10 assists. kind of picked up a little bit of the point guard job along with Ingram, along with Jaylen Noel. And we'll talk about these guys, don't worry. So Brandon Boston's a go, Ingram's a go, Trey Murphy's a go. Those are the obvious ones. Yves Missi had 17 and 11 in this ball game. Finally had a better one, but I still don't think I trust him. Javonte Green has long had a good fantasy game, and he got 27.5 minutes, but I don't know if that's going to happen again. And Jaylen Noel was the point guard for this team once Alvarado went down. He played 22 minutes. If he gets 27, 28 minutes, Noel would kind of be the fourth guy I would think about starting because he's a pretty good three-point shooter. And if he's going to be bringing the ball up and firing it to people that are chucking, that's the way you get a few assists, even without having to do any real shot creation. But I think we can take a one-game wait-and-see approach because no one on the Pels is due back for the next few games at least. So don't jump out in front of it. Let's just see what the next one looks like, and we might get confirmation on Noel, or we might get confirmation on Javonte Green or Missi, or maybe somebody will pop up that we weren't expecting. But in the meantime, Trey Murphy, Brandon Ingram, Brandon Boston, those are the guys you're definitely starting while we're sizing up the rest of this disaster zone. Washington got beat up pretty good, but luckily they play their guys even when they're getting beat up. Kyle Kuzma came back, turned Keyshawn George back into a pumpkin. And, I was calling him Keyshawn because that's the way it's spelled, and I didn't think that there was any reason for me to have to check on it. But I checked on it, or I was checked on it, I guess I should say. I was informed that it's Keyshawn George, so my apologies to the Keyshawn George contingent. That will be rectified going forward. As I tweeted yesterday, I ran 10 suicides in my apartment to atone for my misdeeds. Bilal's a hold. Kuzma's a start again if he's your cup of tea. You guys, you guys have listened to me over the years talk about how I don't want anything to do with Kyle Kuzma and 9-cat. I'm not seeing anything to make me change my mind on that one. I'm just not a big Kuzma 9-cat fantasy guy. Jordan Poole is a go. And Bub Carrington is a go, who had a really nice ball game here, played through some soreness, but a good bounce back with 6 defensive stats, a couple of threes and 6 assists. Just a really nice all-around game for Bub. Alex Sarr is also a hold. He played 28 minutes and had one of his worst shooting games so far this year in every facet, point or field goal, free throw, you name it. But as some of that stuff begins to loop around for him, it's going to be a good one. And then Jonas Valanciunas played 17 minutes, which I would be very concerned about because it did seem like he was getting more to do when Kuzma was out because they needed somebody to go put a ball in a bucket. And I still can't believe that this is what Valanciunas signed up for, but here we are. Freddie VanVleet rested. This was a second half of, I believe this was the second half of a Houston back-to-back that went to overtime on Sunday. Am I remembering that right? They were in Detroit. No, not overtime. Just a really tight ball game in regulation. And Freddie VanVleet got the day off. Hopefully that's all it was. But as we saw during the preseason, when any one player sits, Amen Thompson's the guy. He started, he played 28 minutes, had 4 steals, 4 blocks, and 8 rebounds. This is why all season long, we've said over and over on this podcast, it's a really difficult hold, but there's so many ways for Amen Thompson to get to value. My left lower back is absolutely killing me today. So if you're watching the show and you're seeing a lot of fidgeting, it's because my back hurts like heck. Tari Eason just zooming along. With a player out, that allowed Jabari Smith Jr. to not really get challenged for his minutes. He had another bad ball game. He's a little bit of a buy low, but also just not really a guy I'm interested in rostering. So I think I'd probably just leave it alone. And if you drafted him, I don't really know why you did so, because presumably you listen to my show, so you also listen to my thoughts on who I would actually want on my basketball team. And, I had him way down there, like way beyond where he was being. This guy was getting drafted like 85, and I had him in these are guys I would take at like 105 zone. So he shouldn't have ended up on your team pretty much anywhere. But if he did, I don't think you have much of a choice but to just hang on for dear life. Clippers made a game of it. They were getting beat up pretty solidly by the Thunder, but fought their way back. Still waiting on a James Harden efficient game. It has not come yet. He's been fine, number 29, but 5 turnovers a game and 36% shooting is what's holding him back. We talked about it before. If you're punting those two categories, he's like a top 4 guy in fantasy, but I'm not. So I anxiously await Harden not having a horrible shooting game and maybe only like a 2 turnover night. Not happening against the Thunder. Clippers had 23 turnovers in this game. At least Norman Powell continues to steamroll along. Derrick Jones Jr. had kind of an explosion game, but you're not doing anything with that. The Clippers are the same story every night. Norman Powell, James Harden, Ivica Zubac. Those are your safe plays. Game 1 for the Thunder without Chet Holmgren. Isaiah Joe got the start and was good enough. 2 threes, 3 steals, and a block. The 31 minutes is the number that jumps out. I don't know that that's what they're going to do in the next ball game. It might be Caruso in the next one. It might be Cason Wallace. It might be Jang. It might be Kenrich Williams, who's working his way back from an injury and only played 5.5 minutes. I think for the moment, you're just playing Shea, Jalen Williams, and Lou Dort, because Dort's been on a heater all season long to this point. That still, and kind of feel like it's going to run out eventually, but you don't have to wait for it. Aaron Wiggins played 29 minutes as well. To me, this is a wait and see. I don't think you need to go get Isaiah Joe and race out in front of this one. Oh, I got to get Isaiah Joe. He's going to do a thing. I also think Hartenstein's back in like the next 2 weeks. We haven't heard much about it, but that would put him kind of right on pace. So I just, unless this becomes a very obvious, like, oh yeah, Isaiah Joe is going to play 30 plus minutes every ball game situation. If it becomes that, then you add him. Meaning, like, if it happens again in the next ball game, you probably could. But I'm almost tempted to say, show it to me 3 times, Thunder. Or maybe it's going to be Wiggins. That's the guy. But I'm not doing anything with this. I'm a little bit more hesitant. Now, you guys know me. I play fantasy basketball somewhat conservatively. And this is one of those spots because it's not like it's a super long-term thing regardless. Hell of a game from Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, though. 45, 3, and 9 with 7 defensive stats, 4 3-pointers, and 15 out of 16 free throw shooting. Oof. Shot himself up into the top 4 with that game. He was piddling along towards the back end of the first round. But, of course, that's the magic of the beginning part of the year. You can go a long way overnight. And the last game on the docket, Cleveland, no huge surprises there. You're not going to play Ty Jerome and hope that you catch that kind of lightning in a bottle. You're going to play the main 4 guys. Jared Allen, who's slowed a bit after a very hot start. Evan Mobley, Darius Garland, and Donovan Mitchell. And Spida finally had a better ball game here. He'd been not really doing a whole lot, but they needed him to take over, and so he did. And he's a 3rd rounder right now, which we obviously want more than that. We want more steals. We want more scoring. We want more assists. Hopefully those come around, but he only had 2 assists in this ball game too, and the assists were certainly higher last year because Garland missed a bunch of time. Still, I think we're going to get more than we have to this point with Donovan Mitchell because as we get into the dog days of the season, they're going to need to lean on their superstar, and that's when he'll have to do a little bit more. Bulls, when they can put up 110 points, you can get some decent fantasy value out of this team. Kobe White had a big one. Josh Giddey had a really nice game after we had him on our Buy Low show yesterday. Even Patrick Williams got in on the fun, but you're not doing anything with that. Vooch, Zach LaVine, obviously you're playing those 4 guys. Ayo Dosunmu is kind of the interesting one because he's still playing 30 minutes a game with Lonzo Ball out, but there aren't enough touches for him right now. Only 8 shots in 31 minutes. Yeah, he got some free throws mixed in there. But the defensive stats haven't been there. The efficiency hasn't been there. Ayo remains a prominent watch list name. Although I kind of hope Lonzo Ball comes back because he had already ramped up to closer to 20 minutes. And he's a guy that if he gets into the mid-20s, Lonzo ends up being a play. Certainly in Games Cap Roto, when you can just sit him on days he doesn't go. I know it's sort of like a dreamer's mentality, and maybe we're thinking about 5-6 more weeks down the line, which, look, we're only 3 and something change, basically 3 weeks into the season right now. So to say 6 weeks away, that's a lot. But that's the magic of Games Cap anything or Games Cap Roto is that you can sit on guys and it doesn't hurt you all that much. So that's yesterday. Let us turn our attention to today right after this commercial break. Okay, we've got a few more things to throw up on the screen for those that are watching along. And I don't remember if I yelled at you guys to please do all that stuff. So please hit the like button. Now is the time to do it. Subscribe, obviously, if you like what we're doing here. Subscribe, for goodness sake. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, those 5-star reviews do remain a very big deal. A reminder that you can find me on social at Dan Bespris. Here is the Tuesday card. It's a decently heavy Tuesday. We got 8 games tonight, which is more than usual. And so what are we watching for from the teams involved? Well, let's go through them. The Hornets. Is anyone worth a play with Miles Bridges out? It's not Trey Mann. It might be Cody Martin, but I don't think I'm going to go down that path, at least not until I'm certain of it. And then can we trust Grant Williams? I'm leaning ever so slightly towards yes on that, but something to watch as well. Not much for the Magic. I think we've established here that Goga's got first crack at those center minutes this time around, so throw him into the mix. The Miami Heat, we're going to watch to see if anybody can jump into the Jimmy Butler minutes. It's not going to be the role. The hope was that it would be Jaime Jaquez, but it wasn't. It was Haywood Highsmith in the last ball game, and Butler's out for at least one more. So let's see. Detroit, Jalen Duren upgraded to questionable, so we might get Jalen back with those wonky ankles, and if that's the case, then make sure to yank Isaiah Stewart out of your lineup. So, again, keep a very close watch on news reports. And right as we're talking about them, Cody Martin just got downgraded to questionable due to an illness. So, whoop. On we go. The Atlanta Hawks, Trae Young, is on the shelf. Sore Achilles, I think, is what we're looking at here. That's frightening. Keaton Wallace is technically, I guess, the backup point guard. I'm probably just going to sit and wait. I want to see one of these games without Trae Young before I do something. And I know, again, maybe that puts me a game behind the curve, but I don't think Trae's going to be out for all that long. At least I hope not. And even if he is, I think we could make the ad at halftime or the end of the third quarter or something like that, where we can at least get a little bit of data on the situation before we dive face first into it. And maybe it ends up being exactly as expected, but maybe it doesn't. Maybe they go some other way. Maybe you see a lot of like point Jalen Johnson. I don't know, but it's going to create some efficiency issues. Is the Atlanta a 3-center team now also? Is Larry Nance a fixture in the rotation while they presumably try to move his deliciously expiring contract? Because if so, then Capella, Nance, Okongwu, it's going to be impossible for any of those guys to have value unless one of the 3 is out. Celtics, nothing really. Jaylen Brown's back. I mean, you got the Peyton Pritchard lava hot run going, and you just see how long that lasts. The Knicks are nothing. They got 5 starters worth playing. They can't guard anybody right now. They've turned their team from defense into offense, but for fantasy, that's great for us. Philly, they've got Joel Embiid coming back. That's a huge deal in Philadelphia. I can't imagine he's going to play more than about 18 to 20 minutes, but he'll take 12 shots probably. So I think I would start Embiid in most formats because, look, he's the top 3 fantasy player in starters minutes, meaning that it's only going to take him about 20 minutes to get inside the top 100 and probably more than that while they slowly ramp him up. But they're not saying that he's dealing with any specific injury. So hopefully the ramp up will be, like if it was a preseason. So a half a ball game the first time around, and then, you go to 24 and then 27. And like the ramp up could be quicker if there isn't a true acute injury that we're talking about here. And then because of the Embiid situation, we know Paul George is back around also. If they have 2 of their 3 big usage guys in, is there room for anybody else? And the answer right now is maybe, because Embiid is going to be on a minutes limit and a tight one, I would assume, in this ball game. But over the next 2 to 3 games, 3 to 4 games, whatever you want to say, it doesn't seem like anybody else is really going to have that kind of wiggle room. And I've gotten a lot of questions about Jared McCain, but I can't possibly advocate a pickup there when all the shots he was taking, like the vast majority of them, are going to get thrown into a shopping cart and wheeled over to Joel Embiid. So I'd rather just see what he and Paul George look like and not worry about everybody else. For the Raptors, Emmanuel Quickley is back to being questionable again. This time it's with an arm injury, so get your Davion Mitchells nearby and handy because he could turn out to be a really fun stream, even if just a short-term one. Damian Lillard has a concussion, and I don't know that there's a really obvious, like, you got to plug this guy in type of situation, but maybe, I mean, looking back at, what was the Bucks last game? Did they play on Sunday or did they play on Saturday? I think they played on Saturday. Nope, Dan's wrong. It was Sunday. That was that Boston game on Sunday morning. So, and Dame basically finished that game out, so there wasn't any indication of who would do stuff. It could be on more Andre Jackson. It could be more AJ Green. There isn't really a true backup point guard other than Giannis Antetokounmpo. I mean, if Gary Trent Jr. is healthy, I guess he could potentially slot in and play at the point guard spot. But I think this is another one where I'd probably wait and see. And the Bucks are also feeling confident that this is a short-term concussion. I don't know how they can be that confident. They're hoping to have him back, as soon as later this week. We're still in that part of the season, folks. And I don't mean to pause before the last couple of teams here, but we're still in that part of the season where we're kind of filling our data book. We're filling our notebook. We're filling our pamphlets out where, when certain guys are out, we want to see what the team looks like. And in a lot of situations, it's really obvious. Anthony Davis goes down. If he doesn't play with his eye, then obviously Jackson Hayes is going to pick up big center minutes. And there's a lot of teams where there's that 1-to-1 correlation. But there are also a lot of spots like this one where if Dame is out, we don't really know who takes his job. So we get a piece of data and then we react to it. And it's why we have these look-ahead portions of the show, and just like in general, it's why I have this stuff laid out in front of me, because I want to know what I'm watching for. As opposed to just sort of glazing over and looking at everything all the time, you can laser in on the stuff that has a potential to be a big fantasy shift kind of thing. And this is one of those spots. If someone jumps in and it's leaving a lot of shots on the table, maybe Bobby Portis ends up being a winner here. He might not play more, but damn if they won't need him to score. Phoenix Suns, it mostly comes down to the status of Yusuf Nurkic. If he's in, then Royce O'Neal's still a play because Kevin Durant is out for a couple of weeks. But if Nurk is out, do we bother with Mason Plumlee? And then finally for the Jazz, Keontae George's status is the only thing that really matters right now, because if he's out, we saw Colin Sexton do more. We saw more of Jordan Clarkson. We saw more of John Collins. But if George is in and the ball's in his hands all that time, I remain fairly worried about Colin Sexton, his outlook here over the rest of the year. But more so, I'm worried about when Keontae George is in the lineup, what that does to Sexton. But that's kind of what you're watching there. And you guys know my feelings on Jordan Clarkson. Only when he's warm. Sorry, there are a couple more teams. That was 2 on that page, I should say. Minnesota, this is Mike Conley's last chance. I need a decent ball game, and I need his minutes to be 24 or higher, and I need him to make a damn shot. And I can see that he's not shooting, and so he's being timid, and his minutes are fluctuating. And we know enough to know that at some point he's going to go on a little bit of a run and the field goal percent is going to get back into the mid-40s. How long can we wait on that? And is that run? That run's going to be probably a pretty good one. Do they need him to do that? Maybe, kind of, sort of. While Mike Conley's shooting like crap, it's been useful for Dante DiVincenzo. Does that flip-flop at all at some point this year? Could it pivot one way or the other, or is this just the trend line and this is the way it's going to keep going? And I badly want to hang on to Mike Conley longer and longer and longer, because we know that when his numbers level off, he'll push inside the top 100, because the only reason he's not is because he can't. He's shooting blind right now. But, the steals have been good. The assists have been fine, but not great. And we're some made buckets away from having a top 100 point guard, and those guys are useful, especially efficient ones. Are the Portland Trailblazers going to be this year's Detroit Pistons, where no one finishes inside the top 100? They've got a hand. Where's DeAndre Ayton? He's number 96. And technically Robert Williams is number 92, although, sample size much. I think Portland, like, they may be the worst team in the league for fantasy value. Because right now, of anybody that has actually logged some minutes on this team, DeAndre Ayton at number 96 is the highest ranked Portland Trailblazer. They might not have anyone inside the top 100 this year, especially if they start to sort of ratchet down Ayton's minutes in favor of more Donovan Clingan or Robert Williams. Because you guys know me, I'm not a big Anthony Simons guy. I don't think his fantasy game translates all that well. Scoot is a punt guy. Toumani Camara is just a steal specialist and nothing else. Shaden Sharp is a punt field goal guy. Denny Avdia is not getting to do enough, and he's had a bad shooting start anyway. Your best shot, the funny thing is here, the best shot at fantasy value for this Blazers team is to just let Donovan Clingan play 23 minutes a game, because he'll probably block 2.5 to 3 shots, and that'll carry him far enough. And he's not a bad foul shooter. So that's the pathway. Or maybe the pathway, I should just be more clear, is let any one of the centers play 32 minutes, and then you're fine. But now they've got 3 of them. And Jeremy Grant, you knew he was going to trend down hard after that quick start. Hope you sold high. For the Dallas Mavericks, we might have Derek Lively back for this ball game. I'm curious what that does to the front court. Is it just going to hurt Daniel Gafford? Would it also hurt Najee Marshall at all, who's been able to do some more here with PJ Washington on the shelf? I don't think I'm playing. I'm definitely not playing Najee Marshall. I'm definitely playing Daniel Gafford because we know how his fantasy game translates, and the answer is rather well. And then Lively, I mean, if he's upright, you're playing him, but he's not my favorite center target anyway. And for the Warriors, okay, I know that I'm a sucker. I know that I'm a sucker for DeAnthony Melton, but I don't care, because if he really does stick in the starting lineup, then I got to get him on my fantasy team, because in starters minutes, he's a close to a 2 steals a game kind of guy. He's going to get some assists. He's going to get some threes because they're in a Warriors offense that stresses all that ball movement. And he might actually get 10 shots a game. He might get 10 shots or 10.5 shots a game, which doesn't sound like all that much, but after being an offensive afterthought in Philadelphia, maybe a little bit more there. Now, this thing may crash and burn. Odds are, in fact, that it does. But I refuse to miss out on a DeAnthony Melton surge because I was worried that it wasn't going to work out. I won't do it. I can't do it. I must be there to have him on my team in case it actually sticks. I must. Oh, I got to go through my rosters that have Joel Embiid and get him out of the injured spot. What's the other Warriors note? Yeah, I mean, who else? Like, is Andrew Wiggins going to keep rolling? Maybe I'd hold on there. Draymond, Steph. I personally think everybody else that I didn't just name is streamer level or worse. And I know perhaps that I am, I don't want to say alone, but I'm not in the majority on that one. And frankly, I'm okay with that. I don't mind not being in the majority. Here's your injury replacement board for Tuesday night. I don't think that I've color-coded it yet. Did I do it? No, I didn't do it. This is now updated as of this morning, so I should probably adjust that. Updated as of 9 a.m. Pacific time today. Pulled a number of names off the board, actually, because we're getting closer. So now it's down to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Only 21. That's not bad. And if Duren comes back, we would pull Isaiah Stewart out of there. We might get this board down to only 20 today, guys. How about them apples? Who's actually playing from these teams today? Not many of them. Goga's in there. Royce. Grady Dick. Maybe Davion Mitchell. I don't know. Najee Marshall might come off my board too if Derek Lively's back. Is Detroit playing tonight? I think, yeah, they are, right? All right, you guys are seeing me go through the schedule in real time. Charlotte, I think, is also. Yeah, Detroit's in there. Dallas is in there. Okay, this is, I know, great. This is a great exercise for you guys. Hawks, Raptors, no Lakers. Yes, Suns, no Wizards. All right, there you go. Boink. Now they're color-coded. So there's the like 10-ish injury replacement guys. None of the fantastic ones are going today. But if IQ is out, Davion Mitchell would be a pretty fun one, I think. And that would also make Grady Dick a lot better. Royce O'Neal feels like a pretty safe one. Goga's a pretty safe one. Najee Marshall is not that safe. Stewart would be, I think, if Duran's out. Grant Williams is kind of like on the borderline. Risa Shea. Ochai Abaji's been pretty good. Maybe I should move him over into a slightly more stable spot. And then Mason Plumlee, it's a roll of the dice because you don't really know what the Suns are going to do. But without KD and if Nurk goes down, they feels like they need to have someone big enough in there. You can't have like Royce O'Neal and then a bunch of shooting guards. You need to have some other bigger guy. Anyway, so that's the injury replacement board. Don't worry, we'll copy and paste that over on Twitter as well. So if you're listening after the fact and you can't see the names, we'll put them out there. But again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So yeah, there's 10 names right now, and I just listed most of them off. And we'll try to keep this thing up to date. It's all available in the very much free Google Sheet listed in the show description. I expect you guys to use the things that I have available because it's a lot easier than, again, going back and trying to listen to me describe this stuff over and over again. And that pretty much gets us to the end of the program. I don't think we need to force it to be longer than it is. Coming up in an hour or two, we will chat with Adam King on another show today. We're going to break down some of the most interesting, buzzy, hypey names going on right now and play a little like real or mirage kind of game. We'll see if that's a fun one. You guys know me. I like to try different show ideas, see what works. And we'll take your feedback on that. So if you have a comment, feel free. This one, the next one, other shows, whatever. Hit the like button. Subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. And again, Apple, Spotify, those 5-star reviews. Hugs and kisses to all of you. I am Dan Besbris for Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. Adjusting my spectacles. I'll see you guys in a little bit.